The full view. Welcome back. Now, South African parents have lodged complaints to the Competition Commission to curb the high prices of school uniforms that they claim they are forced to buy from specific suppliers. To further this discussion, we've roped in Mr Siyabulela Makunga from the Competition Commission. He's the spokesperson there, alongside Dr Eileen Carter, the Eastern Cape South African Human Rights Commission head, to shed some more light. Let's start with you, Siyabulela. Of course, compliments to you, but how does the Competition Commission view the role of the school governing bodies, or SGBs, in deciding on exclusive supply agreements with specific uniform suppliers?
Compliments of the new year. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to Dr. Carter and your viewers. I do wish to make this emphasis that the policy obligation, the policy development obligation and decision making, and the balance of powers at schools are really at the hands of school governing bodies. So it is important for parents to be vigilant in terms of not only electing the right people into those positions, but these are positions of responsibilities, and these are positions that really would, when these people assume their duties, talk about the future of their learners or their kids. And I must also emphasize that we view the issue of school uniform as an important part of ensuring that education is inclusive, is accessible, and is affordable, and it is not exclusionary to other kids that otherwise may not afford the high prices that we've seen escalating in the past few years.
Doctor, we know that, of course, the South African Human Rights Commission had recommended a baseline assessment to determine a cap on the cost of basic school uniforms. What progress has been made in this regard?
Thank you, and good afternoon to your viewers as well. Well, we issued this report in October, very specifically, like Mr. Makunga was also saying, reflecting on the right to basic education of our learners in the country. And we found that prohibitive costs in this regard is preventing children from readily accessing their Section 29 rights. Now, the report was issued in October, and we basically gave the National Department of Education 6 months to come back to the Commission with an assessment they have undertaken to determine whether there can be a cap to the costs of school uniforms. Because what we don't want is what Mr. Makunga is also saying. We cannot have basic education be only for the haves and not the have-nots. We need to make sure that the costs of school uniforms are not prohibiting children from accessing their basic rights.
Siyabulela, are there instances there where SGBs have been found to dominate or hold market power in their agreements with uniform suppliers?
Well, not necessarily SGBs, but in our investigation, we started in 2017, having been inundated with complaints from parents. And in the main, they were complaining about the cost of procuring school uniforms, especially at this time of the year where we all know that we've just come back from the festivities and they find themselves out of pockets. And the main challenge that obviously they were confronted with is that schools have entered into evergreen, exclusionary and exclusive agreements, which only accord them only one supplier, which means, therefore, that a parent would be forced to buy from one supplier. And in some instances, and this is a new phenomenon that we have observed in schools, that schools are now entering into the business of supplying uniform, something we find to have a potential of contravening Section 5 and 8 of the Competition Act, because due to these exclusive agreements and limited suppliers, which are only limited to one, we have seen evidence of escalation of prices. But in most cases, we have been able to intervene through our advocacy efforts, where we have been able to reach out to schools, entering into agreements. You would remember that when we signed a settlement agreement with one of the major suppliers, being Makala and Bowell, we have ensured that we enforce an agreement that says they must remove all exclusive clauses that are in the agreement that exist in the business of supplying or manufacturing schools, because we've observed that they've entered into agreements with various schools, and we've said to them that they need to remove those exclusive agreements and terminate all contracts that have got exclusivity, which obviously lock other people out of the industry.
Look, Doctor, we know obviously this is not a new debate. As you alluded to earlier, you've already submitted your report last year already and fingered among those that were actually forcing parents to attain school uniforms were some of the private entities and private schools. But now it's just gone generally across the sector. But how does then the SAHRC envision the baseline assessment that is influencing policies that are related to school uniforms?
We need to assess the need for school uniforms in the first place. Where does it come from? And does it in fact have a space in our South African and sub-Saharan context, if I can put it like that? Because what our investigation showed is that a lot of these policies and principles was in fact imported from the global north. So that's the first assessment. But the Human Rights Commission did its due diligence, and we did find that in respect of the needs assessment, school uniforms has a place in South African schools. But now we need to make sure that it's accessible and affordable. And moreover, it has to be practical. We are sitting in an environment where load shedding is a reality, but we're asking parents to iron clothing. Are we sending children to school in blazers in 42-degree heat if we speak about climate change? So perhaps it's an assessment that we need to do, and that's what we're requesting the department to undertake. We are asking them to come back to us by April to say, this is what we've done. This is how we have reassessed the position in respect of the South African climate, especially the economic climate. We've got a 32% unemployment rate, and we're expecting parents to dish up in excess of 1,000 Rand for a blazer in an environment of 42-degree province, say, for instance, the Northern Cape. So that's what we're asking. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's see whether, in fact, what we are doing is in the best interest of the children that we are serving in terms of Section 28 as well. And in March, we are planning to table this report formally in Parliament as well.
All right, Doctor. And very quickly, Siyabulela, I'm out of time. Have you made any recommendations for schools, SGBs, as well as other stakeholders to promote fair competition as well as affordability of school-related materials, including uniforms? Very quickly.
Well, I'm happy that you are asking me this question, because the Commission has issued guidelines for the procurement of school uniform in the main to promote a more competitive market, really saying to schools that there is no reason why most of the items should not be generic, why we should have parents subjected to buying branded shirts and branded ties when you can really allow kids to have tunics, gray pants and socks being really sourced from any other supplier, as opposed to having only one supplier, something that is obviously has got an impact on the price. We have asked SGBs to play a meaningful role in terms of ensuring that policies that are developed at schools are in sync with the regulations that we've issued in the form of guidelines, that are in sync with the provisions of the Competition Act and other laws of the country. We've asked schools to, when they appoint suppliers, to appoint not only one supplier, to appoint more than one, so as to ensure that the environment is competitive enough to allow for choices in parents and allow for other players to enter into the market.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much to both of you. That was Siyabulela Makunga of the Competition Commission, alongside Dr Eileen Carter of the South African, of course, Human Rights Commission, there on the cost of school uniforms.